I think I need to go back to doing what I did when I first started, which is I was just a guy and I improvised.
I lost a $40 million deal when I was in my 20s because I was over-preparing and not taking enough action.
I just consume everything my audience is doing with me.
Rise and shine!
It's Entspresso time!
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I am not a morning person, but when you start your day with an inspiring morning routine that gets you going, like maybe watch one of these videos, it will change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of Entspresso from Matthew McConaughey.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso, keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
And I had about a year and a half where I would audition, and I would get one callback, two callbacks, three callbacks, and I never got the part. And I remember feeling like I'm too tight. You know what I mean? I think maybe I'm studying too much. I remember talking to myself, and maybe I'm studying too much about the import of the line and everything. And you know what? I think I need to go back to doing what I did when I first started, which is I was just a guy and I improvised. So I had a film that I was cast for, and I was playing this on-the-border Mexican drug lord. And I told myself, I said, I'm not going to look at the sides. I'm not even going to read the script. It's an on-the-border Mexican drug lord. I hear the synopsis. If I know my man, then I'll show up and just, obviously, I'll read it right before I go on. And if I know my man, that'll be like, well, that's exactly what he'd say. Foolish. I go to set that morning. All right, all I got to do is have a glance at it, and it'll be like, yep, I know how to do it. Well, I look at it right before we're about to say action, and it was a page-and-a-half monologue in Spanish. Oh, and I remember I felt this drip of sweat come up on the back of my head and go down, and I for whatever reason, I looked over and I said, Can you give me about 12 minutes? Why I said 12 minutes, I don't know. I figured it was like not long enough to be inconsiderate, but long enough to maybe get a little bit of that stuff. Anyway, I think I was horrible in it. I stammered through some Spanish and tried to look at lines. So then I was like, okay, that's not the way to go. There's a blend here of having to do your due diligence, do your studying, but then being able to go there on the day and relax and throw it all away.
So I love this clip because I experienced the exact same thing in interviewing Matthew McConaughey. So we just had him on my main channel not too long ago. We'll link up the video at the end for you to check it out. Super fun. And I was really nervous going through it because I didn't know much about Matthew. A lot of the people I've had on, Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and all those guys, I've known for a while. And before I knew them, I've known of them. I've been consuming Gary Vee content and Tony Robbins content and all those people way before I ever had any kind of relationship with them. So I knew their world and I knew what to ask, and I knew, I was still nervous, still super nervous going into the interview, but at least I knew their world a little bit. Matthew, I knew nothing about. I mean, obviously he's a great actor and I've seen some of his films, but I didn't really know much about him or his content or what he was putting out or his message to the world. And as soon as I saw my calendar, yep, Evan interviewing Matthew, talking about his book, like, okay. And this has been a big struggle of mine too, of the balance between doing your due diligence and letting it flow. Because my biggest fear is disappointing people. My biggest fear is I'm going to let people down. You're going to watch my thing, my video, my interview, and feel like it was a waste of your time. That Matthew would feel it's a waste of time, that you feel it's a waste of time. That's always my biggest fear, is that I'll still show up, but it's going to be a disappointment to people. And so my strategy used to be prepare. Prepare like crazy. That used to be my strategy, is always prepare, over prepare, have everything super prepared. And what ended up happening was a solid B interview, because I just asked the questions that were on my list. There was nothing risky, but it wasn't a great interview. I was just asking typical questions. I didn't offend anybody, but it was never anything great. And so what I had to learn to adjust, and this is something that Dr. Tess helped a lot with, was figuring out, you know what? All I need to do is find the one angle. What's my one angle? What's the one path? What's the one series of questions that I want to ask? And then pull on that thread and trust that my curiosity will take over. So with Matthew, he wanted to promote his book. I didn't have enough time to read the book fully before it came in. I'm a super slow reader and I got it shortly before the interview. I'm a visual learner. So what I did was I watched his other interviews. I went to the other interviews that he had talking about the book. And what I did was I thought, okay, what would I ask that's different from these guys? Or what's the question that they didn't ask as a follow-up? Like, ooh, that's a good line of thinking. What's the follow-up? Oh, I wish they asked that question. And I made a note of, this is the question I want to ask. And the thing that caught my attention the most was him talking about when he took his sabbatical from acting. It was kind of a forced sabbatical. He didn't want to do romantic comedies anymore and ended up going 20 months without acting. And he considered going to other careers. In the job that he was looking at as other careers, they were, let's see if I can remember, there was a grade 4 teacher, there was a high school football coach, there was a musical conducting orchestra, there was being animal wilderness guide, and I think there was one more. And I asked him, these things, they all seem to have teaching in common. Whether they're teaching kids or adults, it's a wide range of different potentials, but they're all teaching. If you're a conductor, you're still teaching professionals. If you're the guide, you're teaching about the animals. Like, where does that thread come from? And he said, I never thought about that. And he didn't quite know how to answer that question. And at the very end of our interview, 20 minutes later, he thanked me for bringing that up. And he's going to go keep on thinking about this whole teaching angle and why that's in him and where it comes from.
I'm gonna keep thinking about this common denominator of me wanting to be a teacher. Thank you.
That's a much better interview. It's asking a question that I don't know what the answer is gonna be. And it's my genuine curiosity. And so there's always that line in between of the thing that you are preparing for to then give you the freedom to be open and curious. I do a lot of work with Tony Robbins' agency, his PR agency, and we brought a whole bunch of different people on my channel to do different interviews with. And one of the things that the head person there always says about me, which is super humbling, is just the curiosity and energy that I have to show up for the interviews. And it's shocking to hear that because it's like, I never thought of myself as a great interviewer, but all I have to do when I'm preparing is find the angle. Like, why am I genuine and energetic? Because I actually care about this thing from them. I have to find their story and research them enough to know the angle that I want to use to find the thread to pull on. And then I just let go and trust that I'm going to do a good job. That in that conversation, we're going to come up with something, that I'm going to pull on that thread until I'm not curious anymore. And so that's the balance of the preparation. I used to be the over-preparer to the point where I didn't take action. I lost a $40 million deal when I was in my 20s because I was over-preparing and not taking enough action. But just taking action with no plan is not a great idea either. So in that mix. And so it was a super timely message because we just had Matthew on the channel, and that was my own stress. It was a week of stress of preparing, and then at the end of the day, just letting it all go. And we had a fantastic conversation. And so it's what I try to remind myself of every time I'm about to go into a conversation with somebody that makes me nervous. It was awesome hearing Matthew say it in this video too. Now I've got a really special bonus cup that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and just get motivated, the sign says you have a 35% chance of actually doing something. And that's terrible. I want you to get to a greater number. When you actually create a plan, you get motivated, you have a plan, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you have a plan, you get motivated, a plan, and you commit to somebody else, you have a 95% chance of following through. So I want to celebrate you. I want to know your single biggest takeaway, and write down in the comments below your plan of action for the next week so you can follow through and we can celebrate with you too. Also, if you want to have more self-love and self-belief, check out my 254 series. The sign says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a habit. So if you want to build your self-belief, I've designed a free program where I will send you a video every day for free. The link to join is in the description below.
My call time is at 7. Then you back your clock up 4 hours, and then that's when I get up.
The way to improve lives is to continually improve yourself.
I think you should invest, whether it's you or the person below you, but no further than that, over 100 hours of qualitative consumption of every personal brand trying to convert on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, to just see if there's anything you see. One of the biggest mistakes, one of the things I've never talked about that I'm starting, that literally this might be the first time I'm talking about, this is what's good about 2 weeks vacation. You get to think like, I don't know if I'm articulating enough to people how much research I'm doing. Now I'm doing it with audience. I'm not seeing what, Richard Branson's doing or other, I don't do that. I just consume everything my audience is doing with me. Everything. All of it. I'm just reading all the comments.
If you want to see my recent one-on-one with Matthew McConaughey, check out my interview right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Sometimes it's not about what decision you make, just make one and commit to it. Self-determination and fate, intentionality and trust. I mean, it's always a balance of those two.